Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Friday, thank goodness. It's November the 1st. This will be our chart lesson for today. And this was a really, really good day. Um, if you were managed to catch this, that's great. Definitely should have had a chance to catch this one. That was just a remarkable move. And I want to show you we've had two almost perfect measured moves. We had two on the way down and pretty much two on the way up. And let me show you at least what I saw. Here's the first leg down, then we had the little correction, and then we had the second leg, and it looks like we missed it by one tick maybe. So it just doesn't get any better than that, and that should be your target. And sometimes it'll overshoot it, but a lot of times it'll undershoot it too. So I usually try to get a few, if I'm trying to hang on to a runner or something and shoot for that target, what I will do is get a few ticks in front of that. If you get within 3 or 4 ticks of catching the high or low of a move, then you've done good. So that's about all you can ask for. So no need to get greedy because if you do, a lot of times it'll cost you. But then we had this leg coming up here, and was looking for a measured leg on it, and you see we went a little higher on that one. We came up a tad short on that one. We went a little higher on this one, but that doesn't surprise me because that's kind of been the MO lately, is that this market, when it tends to turn quicker at strong support, and it tends to get on through strong resistance because there's just an overall upward bias still longer term. And maybe that's waning and maybe that's going to roll over now, but we'll just have to see. But I'm going to tell you, this was a really good trading. I had a great trading day today. I hope you did too. I actually had a better trading day today than the big day that I actually showed y'all last time. I'm not going to put up my performance and do all that again, but I had a better day today than then by a good bit. So that would give you some kind of indication of the kind of day that you can have on a day like this. Because if you catch a bunch of runners on something like this, or like this one here, and they just keep going, and it's and this right here, both of these were really easy money. Let me show you what I saw. We'll talk about the trades, and then we'll call it a day. I did want to show you something real quick before I get into that. This is kind of the highs here. These were the overnight lows, and you notice it was support, and we went on through, and then it kind of acted as resistance before it went higher. And this was the overnight highs. Always mark those, and as they prove themselves, I'll darken them. This one's never been tested, so I haven't darkened it or anything. But usually what I'll do is once it's proven, I'll make it look like that. And sometimes I'll just do it like that at the start of the day, but we were trending down, and I never got around to fooling with the top line. So. But let me show you this. I wanted to show you this reversal. We got a little trend channel. I kind of see a trend in a median line. Didn't matter which way you saw it. You could have seen it as a spike in channel, and it might have been that. But either way, you see that's all the same line. And no matter how you draw it, you still get the trend line break here and the move to a new high, and then we reverse. And I was going back and forth with a trader that that shorted this. I think he tried to get short here first, and it failed, and then he shorted it again here. But there's quite a bit of difference between this and this, and that difference is, notice we're not very far away from the EMA here, and notice here we're way away from the EMA. We did have a trend line break here too, and you could have considered it one here if you saw this as a spike in channel. So either way, but generally you're going to get a new high on a retest, unless this is going to be really, really strong resistance. You're going to get a retest more than likely with a new high, either a double top or a new high. And so it's really risky taking that first move before the trend, after the trend line, because what will happen is a lot of times, especially if you make a lower high right here after this trend line break, because generally what happens then is you get another equal leg and then the move up. And so a smart trader would be looking for a long here, not a short. And you got to be really careful about shorting up here. I marked this one in green, but this is what I really wanted to show you. This is really like a second entry short. Notice the little two matching lows right there. If you went to a smaller chart, you would see a pullback right there. And you hear me talk about that from time to time, but I'm just going to show you. I'm going to pull up the smaller chart and show you what that looked like. Where was it? Right here. No, I'm sorry. Right here. And notice that's a second entry short there on a smaller chart. Here was the trend line was coming up through here. We got the break. Let me get that thing out of the way. And there's your move to the new high. And there's your, and so when you're looking for a second entry short off a new high, you're wanting to count to the lows. And so notice that there's your new high. That's your first entry. You got to pull back. You couldn't go lower, and then you tried to go higher. So you really got a failed second entry long there on a smaller chart. But notice that higher, that break lower. So there's your second entry short on a smaller chart. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about going to a smaller chart. It'd probably be a second entry. Anytime you see those matching lows or matching highs like that, even though we didn't go higher there on this chart, we did on the smaller chart. You can see right there, and then it turned down and broke lower. And so on a smaller chart, that's a second entry short. And so you could have waited on that bar on this chart, and look how bearish it is, and gone. It's still, to me, that's still very risky. It's still very aggressive. You see it paid off handsomely, but you know, it doesn't usually work out that well. Usually what it'll do is it'll hit the EMA and it'll bounce and come back and make a double top or something, just like it did right here. Look what happened right here. You got a trend line coming down through there. This is the same thing in reverse. You got a trend line coming down through there. You got a break, a new low, and then, you know, if you try to go long right there, guess what happens? You get burned. It comes back. And that's what usually happens 9 times out of 10. If you get a double bottom, then you might consider going long. So here, if it had come up and you got a double top in a second entry, I would have liked it a whole lot more. It would have been less aggressive. But the way it is now, the best thing to do is wait on a trend in the other direction, and like you got here, and then you get the short right here. And that's the way I saw it. So, but hopefully that makes sense to you, showing you how that second entry is. But let's talk about the trades. I like this long here. Simply because it's a failed second entry short, and when it went higher and broke higher, that's a failed second entry. And you can see it kept going higher. You didn't get any runners or anything, but you got an easy scalp. I didn't like anything else. This is kind of congestion right here too, and that's another reason that you might have thought of that if you saw this congestion. But this is a great long entry. It's a two-legged pullback. It's a break below. Let me move this line down there. You can see all those matching lows and the touches, and it's a break. And even if you went even lower, you might get more touches there, but you get the most touches with closes right across there. And notice how we broke lower. Let me move this out of the way. We broke lower there on a second entry short, and see, that shows you, I mean, that's a failed break higher in a second entry short. So it could have been the same thing could have happened here that happened right here, especially if you were looking at that as the trend line, which the trader that I'm talking about did. So you can't, you know, I'm just going to tell you, trying to pick tops and bottoms is a losing strategy. It's the least, you know, breakout pullbacks and picking tops and picking bottoms are the least reliable patterns we trade. So there's so many more patterns and setups that we like that are 100 times better. I don't know why you'd want to waste your time with that, but I'm not going to, you know, that's neither here nor there. I just think it's risky, and I think in the end you'll find out you probably won't, you know, it's not a very good strategy. So, but anyway, that's a two-legged pullback, a second entry long, a failed break below that trapped traders. Look how it reversed, went out the top. You know, you might have waited on this bar, used a stop or a limit order, and you could have gotten filled a couple of ticks back into that bar, and then it takes off, and boom, it's off to the races. Easy trade. Actually, you know, I can't remember if this thing opened and traded down and then went high. I can't remember, so I don't know if you would have got filled on a limit order. You'll have to go back and check it, because I can't remember now. This was as we talked about, a second entry short after a trend line break, but a lot of times you get two legs up and you know, you're still above the EMA. There's been nothing below the EMA. Um, and really what this is a news-driven event. And obviously they perceived it to be negative, but what they do is they run it in the other direction first, and it just shows you once again that the price action works even during the news, because we got the trend line break, the move to a new high, and then the sell-off. So but that all moved pretty quickly. You had to be on top of your P's and Q's. But that's another reason that you might have thought this was coming back, because it was a news item, and most of the time it'll come back. But you know, you don't know that. Sometimes it'll go like this before it comes back. And so, I mean, this was just, if you were able to get in this and take this, it was, I'm just telling you, it's really, really risky because of the news, because it was a news driven event, because of the volatility, because it's risky. It's still a counter trend trade. We don't really have a proven trend until this trend line starts holding all the way down here, and that's just a short term one of the bigger channel. So I hope that makes sense to you, but that's just a really risky trade, and most of the time you take that, it could easily go the other direction. Okay, I'm sorry. It probably felt only like a second to you because I paused the video, but I've been gone for 20 minutes here, so I'm just completely lost. I think we were talking about these moves coming down here, and I showed you what a second entry looks like. And I'm sorry, I gotta pause it again. Okay, gone for another 15 minutes. Thank goodness I can pause it, and it probably seems, you probably don't even realize the difference, but I think we were talking about this area right here. This is, I circled this in purple. I know at least one person got caught short here, and I could see why you would consider going short here. It's a really nice, but if you knew the channel, what the real channel was, then I think, you know, that would be that'd be the main reason, I guess I would say, that you wouldn't want to go short here, because we're not through pulling back to the trend line again. Now, there's oftentimes on a move that strong that the prices will turn on down, but if you take into consideration all this overlap here, if you enter in this overlap, you know, sometimes it's going to work, but 9 times out of 10, it's, you know, this is what's going to happen. And you see that little range right there, and what happened was it failed out the top, then failed out the bottom, and then went higher. And notice we kind of traded up into that little range. So basically what you end up doing is getting an equal leg on the other side. And let me show you this. You got that leg. I'd probably call that the first leg. It may have been to here. And then there's your second leg. And really there's 2 legs in that leg, so I'm going to say that's leg 1, and there's leg 2, and it's basically a perfect, you know, you can see that. There's your 2-legged correction back to the trend line, which is right in there, and then it turns down, and you get your next leg that was like this leg. So I want to talk about that, and that's very enticing right there, because it broke higher, trapped everybody, but by the time you can get in, you see there you're so close to these last 2 swing lows. Yeah, you got one down here, but it's a higher low than these 2 lows, so there's a good chance you could turn up and make another leg up like this as well. But we just had a bigger channel, and if you drew that line, you might have even originally had it something like this, a little bit steeper, but that doesn't catch those moves in there. So if you draw it like that, you might have even had it a little bit flatter, and if you do that, that makes it not even have a break yet, or maybe even up there. So it just depends on how you looked at it. I ended up adjusting mine. I think I had it originally, I might have even just had it off these 2 lows right here originally, like so, which makes it a little flatter that way, and you still get the same thing though. So it's just a 2-legged correction. If you entered here, you were just early, and it only failed by a tick, because because it's basically a 4-tick failure, but it's just a trap, and they run everybody and they trap everybody long, and this was really got people here on this second entry, and then it turns down. So you had to know what was going on here. If you understood, and there's also, if you draw your short-term trend lines, let me show you this. There it is right there. And you see this is your first break. And then 2 legs to a new high. Exactly what you'd expect. And it sells off. And so, I mean, even these short-term trend lines sometimes will give you a perfect trend line retest following our rules, a break and 2 legs to a new high. So, but notice we got a new low there, first entry short, second entry short. I didn't like entering below those dojis, same thing here. But when you got this bearish bar here, when it broke lower, you could have used a stop right there. You're kind of getting in, you're missing a lot of the move. So I liked using the limit order, which easily got filled. And you don't know it's going to do this. Generally, when you have one leg that moves this quick, the next leg is a lot choppier. But it was 2 nice, quick, easy moves. But it was news-driven again, and it was bearish. It was received bearishly. And you can see it doesn't matter. This crazy market's taking it all back. But this was a nice move down here. You might have thought about going short here if you were looking for a measured move, but it's getting too risky then. If you saw the median line and you saw that pullback, it broke higher first and then went down, you could have gone short there. In fact, I'll just go ahead and draw it in green just in case you want to come back and review this. You might have taken that short there, but it's risky. Because like I said, usually these are more choppy, and you're nowhere near the EMA. It didn't even come back to test this area. We kind of already tested it there. So it is similar to a breakout pullback short as well. But then you get another second entry short here right off the trend line. Notice this new low, first entry pullback, second entry short. This one got just enough to get the it had a couple of ticks to spare, but you got your scalp fairly quickly and fairly easily. Then it pulls back, and it gives you a second entry short off the high. And this is, you got that overlap there, so it was better to wait on this bar and then either use a stop or try to get a limit order in there. You wouldn't have had much luck with a limit order on that one. It moved pretty quickly, and then boom, another easy scalp. And then I drew this in the lavender color because now you've got a failed break lower here. You got all this overlap, so you don't want to be going long or short here. Then you get a little, looks like it's going to be a little trap and like it's going to go shorter. And you can't go short at a double bottom down here after 3 tries to go lower that can't go anywhere. You know, you might have even thought about going long there. But you got to wonder, is this a trend line break or not? Really it looks better up there, and you may not have had a break, but when this came up short, I just kind of adjusted it off those closes right there, and you can see that close right there. And by that, you don't really get these little dojis, so you may not even have a close outside. So, but I really think it's back down here, and this was your break, and because we were, then you make your move down. You get a reversal pattern. This is what a reversal pattern looks like. You kind of get a couple of attempts that fail, a double bottom with maybe a little trap, and then you get this higher high. Look how much higher that high is. It went right through the EMA. You come back, you make a higher low, boom, boom, and off it goes. And that's what a reversal pattern looks like. And now that you got a double bottom and a little failed break lower that trapped a lot of shorts, that's when you expect to see it. And this is where all the shorts finally gave up. And you might have considered going short here. So there's no trade in here. You don't, except maybe a real aggressive long down here. And I just think that's too aggressive, just like the same thing I set up here. I would be more tempted to go long here than short here because we know what's been happening around strong support every day. This is kind of what happens. But you never know when you're going to get one of these days where this thing just keeps going, and it's just too risky. So I don't like that trade. I don't like anything in there except sitting on your hands. Same thing here, just sitting on your hands. There is a little failed second entry short, but again, look, by the time it fails, you've got one, two, three overlapping bars. Two of them are dojis, and you see what happens. It breaks higher. Plus there's all that resistance there, and then it pulls back. There's a second entry short there, so you might have thought about going short there, and it would have worked. But again, this looks like a reversal pattern. You've got this little trend line, this little temporary trend going up. There's enough really to maybe to say that there was a break and a retest of the high there, but it's really depending on how you drew it. You could, but I don't really see a close outside till here, so there's a chance you might get a retest on that. And then you make this high here. I actually liked, if you drew your trend line across these tops and drug it down here, I actually like this bar right here going long above it, but the safer play was to wait on the second entry. Let me move these out of the way. This is just, look at that bullish bar there. If you tried to use a limit order, you couldn't get any better than right at the top. And it goes up, it pulls back, and it breaks one tick lower and immediately reverses. So go long there on the stop if it breaks out that bar on the same one. If not, you might want to reevaluate, wait and reevaluate. But that was just, man, that thing took off because that was when all the shorts gave up and all the longs that got stopped out here rejoined. And there it goes. And that was really it. I didn't mark anything after that point. That got you into the 1 o'clock area, and there's still another second entry long right there. It would have worked. You got to pull back, a little trap right there. Might have worked. You're really getting close to these highs again. This is a breakout pullback long right here that you might have considered. But anyway, that's what I saw today, and man, it was a good day. Like I said, I had a really good day today because you catch runners on this stuff, and if you start looking for your measured moves, then you can hold out on those runners, and if you get them, and hope that they just keep on going. And I mean, this, you would have had runners here, and long here and here. So both of these nice measured moves gave you runners. And so that's where you really can get the, I call that my gravy. My scalps is where I try to make my money, and if I manage to catch a runner, well, that's just gravy. That's freebies, and that's and they make up for your occasional losses and kind of wipe them out, or at least neutralize them, so the rest of your trades are all winners. So that's what I saw today. It's Friday. It's almost 3 o'clock. This has taken me a lot longer than I hoped, even though I've only got 23 minutes of recording here. I've been sitting here for an hour trying to get this done, so I apologize for the interruptions. But I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you had a good trading day today. I hope what we've talked about makes sense to you. But I'm going to wrap it up. We'll do it again next week. So for today, I'm done for this week. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.